If we don't manage to get on top of this problem of obesity, the whole nation's heading towards really catastrophic medical problems.
People should be treating obesity as seriously as they're treating smoking. The situation is that bad.
The bottom line is that overweight and obesity at all levels of education is associated with a poorer outcome.
It's one of the biggest public health issues facing the UK, increasing the risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and provoking numerous psychological problems that can lead to a life of depression and low self-esteem if left unchecked. Obesity is a subject that is high on the agenda of both the government and schools. Norman Foster is a microbiologist and nutritionist who advises the Suffolk Primary Care Trust on obesity. He was recently responsible for organising the weighing and measuring of nearly 12,000 school children across the county.
Along with every other primary care trust in the country, we were all tasked with measuring our children because, strange as though it may seem, up until recently there wasn't a database. We had estimates as to how many children were overweight and obese, but we didn't actually have the actual figures. And what we did, we actually worked out for each child what's known as a body mass index, or BMI. We've got to say that with children it's a little bit more complex than it is with an adult. With an adult it's fairly straightforward. If you're above, if you're 25 or above, you're actually in the overweight category. If you are BMI of 30 or above, you're actually obese. But with children, they obviously are growing, so you've got to take that into account. And what we found with our measuring was that in the older age group, the 10 to 11-year-olds, a third of our kids are actually overweight or obese, which is really seriously worrying.
The shocking evidence that's emerging of childhood obesity in the UK has spurred the government into action, introducing several high-profile initiatives, including healthy eating campaigns and encouraging much more physical exercise in our schools.
Until recently, we saw obesity as being really a cosmetic problem for children, but we're now aware that it actually has much more profound effects on the body, even during childhood. So that some 30% of children who are obese already have high cholesterol levels, already have indicators in their blood that they're at risk for diabetes. So the big issue is that by young adult life, we'll be seeing a great deal more heart disease and diabetes.
Professor Mary Rudolph is a consultant paediatrician and government advisor on childhood obesity. She's studied this growing problem for over 20 years and has created a 12-week programme based in local leisure centres and community halls aimed at overweight school children. Watch It is kept completely separate from school life and away from potential teasing and any playground politics.
On your marks, get set, go!
It's often very difficult for obese and overweight children to have the problem addressed or talked about in the school setting. Children can be quite cruel, and obese children are often victims of bullying and just feeling different. And so I think it's really important that the sort of help they get is offered outside of the school setting.
We try to make it as fun as possible. As you can see, the kids are running around now enjoying themselves. We do it more on a games sort of theory than sports, you know, so we make it fun, like we play different games, Dylan's and Dishes, we're playing Terminator at the moment. And we find that the kids will let us know what sort of games they really enjoy, and we try and incorporate them. And obviously we've got people with different abilities as well, so we need to make sure that everybody can get involved in these games. Yeah, they seem to really enjoy it.
Exercise is just half of what we do, really. We've got some family sessions going on upstairs, looking at every aspect from sort of what they do in their spare time, activity, nutrition. Then we do some group sessions as well, where the kids start to share some ideas. You know, the first 12 weeks are maybe about them learning new things and sharing experiences, but then when they move away from that, they move on to group work with other children, sharing best idea, you know, top tips with the other kids and things. And then, you know, eventually they start to look out to what activities they can do outside of Watch It, and hopefully then they're ready to go out and, you know, to be in control of their own lifestyle then.
A combination of exercise and nutritional education aimed at obese children is the basis for several weight control programmes in the UK. But very few referrals to these schemes come from within schools, something that one academic believes must change.
The big problem is that schools have a responsibility to children, but in many ways, because of a whole range of factors, they shy away from that, particularly their worry about labelling children, the sensitive issues about overweight and obesity, and things like, eating disorders being developed in children. The evidence on those things is very, very weak that it will have a negative impact on these kids. And the evidence is very strong that actually if they do take an interest, the kids will change their lifestyles for the good.
Professor Paul Gately of Leeds Metropolitan University brought the first American-style residential fat camp into the UK. And he believes that by being too sensitive, teachers may well be making a bad situation even worse.
What are the concerns that people have? Well, one of the major concerns is that we're going to upset children by identifying them as overweight or obese. Okay? That's what many, many teachers say to us. The response I normally give to that is, these kids know they're overweight and obese because they get told every single day of their lives that they're fat. They get teased and bullied. So by a teacher raising that as an issue, it isn't going to add to it. It's actually going to take away that someone has shown an interest and actually this person might be able to help me.
Paul and his team at the Carnegie Weight Management Programme are actively seeking to take their sessions directly into schools and are keen for teachers and school nurses to refer children who they believe are in need of help.
If we identified a child with a learning difficulty, a teacher wouldn't have a problem in therefore providing support. If a teacher recognised that a child had or was able to recognise diabetes, cancer or heart problem, they wouldn't think twice about labelling that child and therefore looking at appropriate support. Obesity is the same. It's just that society looks at it differently.
At the Saturday clubs run by Carnegie, many of the children have been brought in by an active in-school recruitment policy. Children like Hannah have been made aware that there is something that they can do about their weight.
Well, my brother took out this letter about it and he showed Mum and she thought it was a good idea and me and Daniel both agreed to it.
The Fun for Life scheme is built around group support rather than one-to-one sessions, and while the children take part in exercise and activity, the parents are encouraged to bond in nutritional education sessions.
More healthier option for them. So first of all, we've got this handout, this healthier options. There you go. And on here there's just some ideas at the top, what you probably already know anyway.
We just do the lifestyle session on a Saturday morning, which has benefited me by knowing what to give them and what not to give them.
And what we're going to do, we've got some nutritional information for you. We've got McDonald's, KFC.
You don't realise how much fat is in certain foods and you're giving them every day. So, you tend to cut down now or try something alternative.
Thank you very much.
By encouraging schools to actively refer overweight children to weight control courses, Paul Gately has gone further than most in the UK. But in America, one state has taken school intervention even further. This is Little Rock, Arkansas, home of former President Clinton. Along with the neighbouring states of Mississippi and Louisiana, the citizens of Arkansas are some of the heaviest in the US, with around 38% of children and adolescents classified as obese. Until recently, the problem was getting worse by the year, but aggressive legislation has meant that Arkansas has reversed the trend and is the first state in the US to have halted rising levels of childhood obesity.
I think it's unprecedented. I think because of Act 1220, we've made changes in Arkansas, but this has sent waves throughout the United States and indeed throughout the world.
Joy Rockenbach was brought in to implement one of the boldest health reforms in the American education system.
All right, Miss Elise, we're going to come over here. Okay, step up on it, be real still.
Act 1220 called for all students in the state to be weighed and measured.
Alrighty, now
But
let's
unlike
go
in
over
the
here.
UK, the resulting BMI was sent directly to the parents for them to act upon. From the very beginning, it was a controversial move.
Initially in Act 1220, it was stated that height and weight would be assessed on all school children and that it would be reported on the student's report card. Well, you can imagine what kind of shock waves that sent, thinking that you were going to get a grade for math and a grade for reading and a grade for your weight or your size, which is how people typically would interpret body mass index. So there immediately we had issues to deal with.
With both parents and the media expressing outrage at the potential for teasing and crash dieting, it was decided that BMI results would be released to the parents in the form of a confidential health report. Rhonda Sanders was one of the first parents in the state to receive her daughter's BMI. The results horrified her.
You have an idea of what it's going to say when you open it, but you just really, you don't want to do that. There's something about seeing in black and white it say, your child is way over here in the 95th percentile, and it says your child Samantha Sanders is 26.4, I think it was, BMI, and the arrow is way over here on the 95th percentile. Your stomach just kind of sinks and you realize we've got to do something. We've really got to do something. I don't want this to come next year and say the same thing.
At just 10 years old, Samantha Sanders was 5 feet tall and weighed just under 10 stone, a fact that meant she was heavier than 95% of girls of the same height and age in America.
I realized I needed to change because I've had people made fun of me before in elementary, and I knew that I was overweight, but I never did anything about it. And then when she showed me, I really wanted to change because something told me I was, and then my doctor told me I needed to. So I knew it was a very big deal.
As a direct result of the BMI letter, Samantha radically changed her lifestyle.
Now I do my crunches, I do push-ups, and I run in the neighborhood. I have to do those, and then I normally dance now, really. It's all I do is dance.
The regime of healthy exercise, along with a diet including more fresh fruit and vegetables, led to Samantha losing nearly 2 stone whilst growing over 4 inches in a 7-month period.
I feel so much better in myself. I feel like I actually open up to people. Used to, I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't want to be the center of attention and everything. And I have more confidence in myself because I know I can do it. And then doing the dance team, I know that I can dance.
She's definitely a lot more confident in herself. Now she's on dance team and gets out there and dances and cheers and all of that good stuff. So it was not fun getting the letter, but it definitely moved us to a different place.
Samantha's story has a happy ending, and the Arkansas legislation took great care to make sure that the effect of passing the BMI information back to parents was a positive one.
Hi, Principal Thompson. My name is Brooke Montgomery, and I'm calling from the UAMS College of Public Health.
The Arkansas Center for Health Improvement commissioned a statewide survey to evaluate how the school population was reacting to the BMI statistics being sent home.
Things like teasing associated with weight and the like were some of the things that people were very, very concerned about. And what we found was in the baseline year, the initial year before the screening had happened in the schools, when we did the surveys, when you talked to parents, you found out that about 14% of them indicated that their kids had been teased based on weight-related kinds of things. It was a little bit higher if they were overweight, that makes sense. It was higher if they were female. It was higher if, they were more likely to have been teased if they were in a large school than in a small school, but it was still a relatively low rate. It was only 14%. And that probably the most striking thing was in the first year after we did the screening in the schools, it was 12.7%. So by the time you do all the statistical things that correct for different groups of people and that sort of thing, it's no significant change.
Although controversial, the results of the research showed that releasing the BMI statistics had had no negative outcome whatsoever. So should we adopt a more aggressive stance back here in the UK? Joy Rockenbach thinks so.
What do you care about? You know, do you care about somebody's, I don't want to say that do you care about their feelings right now, but do you care about whether or not they live long, healthy lives? And, you know, there are probably going to be some people that will always hate this process in our state and will probably always think of it in a negative way. But if we see this turn downward like we believe it's beginning to do, then we've been successful. And I just have to simply say, would you not want to do that too? Would you not want to absolutely turn the tide in your own country and have healthier people? Healthier people make healthier communities, and healthier communities are cheaper to run.
Fresh legislation in Arkansas reiterates the parents' right to withdraw children, but the BMI initiative looks set to stay. Back in the UK, experts are wary about reading too much into individual results.
BMI is a measure of the amount of weight for height of children, and the actual value you get doesn't tell you anything about the proportion of fat or muscle that is a characteristic of that child. Okay, Ruan, when we measure people's fitness, what we need to do is measure all the air they're breathing out. So what we need you to do is
Joanne Welsman is the Deputy Director of the Children's Health and Exercise Research Centre at Exeter University, an organisation that's been monitoring the fitness levels of seemingly healthy children for the past 20 years.
The problems of just focusing on overweight or obese children is it's missing a much larger problem, which is related to the inactivity and the low activity levels of the vast majority of our children. It's not just the overweight and obese children that we need to be concerned with, it's actually all children.
Joanne's concern is that if government and schools focus too much attention on children who are visibly overweight, they will fail to address an even bigger health issue. She believes that the lifestyles of most children today put them at risk.
We've been studying children's physical activity and fitness since the late 80s, and our first studies, which were conducted in the late 80s and published in 1990, actually were the first to show in a large representative sample of British children worryingly low levels of physical activity. And this was in children whose fitness was perfectly normal. And what we found was that when we looked at their activity levels relative to the guidelines which were current at that time, which suggested that children should be doing a 20-minute period of exercise at an intensity relative to a brisk walk or a slow jog, we found that none of the children, or very few, one or two, were actually achieving that level of activity. So when we lowered our sights and looked for 10-minute periods of moderate level activity, that is activity that's equivalent to a brisk walk, that over half of the girls and over a third of the boys weren't even achieving that fairly moderate level of physical activity during the monitoring period.
Since the 1980s, the UK government's guidelines have recommended that every child needs to take between 30 and 60 minutes of brisk physical exercise daily. But the reality is that our school children are getting less exercise than ever. At St Luke's Sports College in Exeter, they've been gathering information about their students' lifestyles and exercise habits through an innovative online project.
I'm answering what food and drink I drink or eat, and then I have to answer my age and my weight and height, and then it tells me how fit I am afterwards.
The Fit to Succeed initiative is designed to make pupils aware of the levels of activity they should be achieving each day, along with making them think about the food choices they make and the lifestyles they maintain.
It asks you how many portions of fruit and vegetables, and asks you what clubs you do, and at school and what fitness you do.
One advantage of the online survey is that staff are able to identify individual preferences, something which is likely to make any interventions far more successful.
We know from the survey what activities our students want to be participating in. In Exeter, it's swimming. Across the board, in all the year groups, that seems to be an activity which they want to be doing more of, whether that's because of access to facilities within the locality or other causal factors. we're unsure, but we know that swimming is something they want to be doing more of. We know that children prefer to take part in activities immediately after school. They don't want to go away and come back again. They want to be taking part as soon as their lessons end. We know that they prefer to take part in activities on their school site rather than moving to other areas. So we can start to cater for them in a more individualised way. That way, making it more relevant and making it more likely that we're going to get a greater number of students accessing opportunities.
The project at St Luke's is ongoing. As each student enters information, he or she is allocated a unique ID number. Using this number, their lifestyle and nutritional data can be monitored alongside their ongoing academic achievement levels. The survey is designed to track students throughout their school career. Early evidence from Fit to Succeed surveys done in 7 Exeter schools seems to indicate that there is a correlation between activity levels and academic achievement, something that's being looked at by academics both here and in America.
There's an emerging literature that associates obesity with educational attainment, and it happens at all levels. There's some new research looking at kindergarten and sort of early junior age in the United States, which suggests that children who gain weight rapidly, who become obese, actually suffer educationally. Not enormously, but detectably. There's other research that really picks out that adolescence as a key time when their academic performance is not the same as that of their normal weight peer group.
Andrew Hill is Professor of Medical Psychology at Leeds University. For several years he's been studying the mental impact of childhood obesity and how it can directly affect the long-term quality of our children's lives.
There's again this emerging and quite strong evidence that across the age group that obesity is associated with poor academic performance. But it's quite difficult to explain that relationship. Don't think of it necessarily as causal. It may be that the social experience that kids have in an educational establishment is not as good, so they may actually not be at school as often, and when they are at school they're not in a position to concentrate because they're fearful or depressed because of what's happening. There may be some complications of the weight that is associated with physical health problems, which again means they may not be at school as often. There's old evidence from the United States that parents are less likely to pay for their overweight and obese kids, particularly if they're female, to go on to further education. So there's a whole host of potential explanations there. But the bottom line is that overweight and obesity at all levels of education is associated with a poorer outcome.
Andrew Hill's comments seem to be borne out by the experience of staff at Pinhoe Primary School in Exeter, where they've made exercise a high priority for all children during the normal school day. Even when they're in fancy dress for Children in Need Day, the pupils at Pinhoe find time to take part in a 10-minute dance session, part of an activity resource called Take 10, developed by Devon Curriculum Services. Take 10 comes in the form of an information pack, including a teacher's guide and instructional DVDs. The pack contains over 150 ideas for 10-minute activity sessions that can be dropped into a classroom schedule at any point in the day.
All of the ideas promote aerobic activity, so the children become active. Because a lot of children arrive at school nowadays from a car journey, and before they've been in the car, they've been sitting watching the television or playing a computer game at home. They're not in a fit state to learn. So what we do at our school is we use it at the beginning of the day to get the children really active and lively. And we've noticed that it's really helped with some of the behavioural issues. It's also helped with children's readiness to learn. Apparently, just by standing up, you increase the amount of oxygen that goes to the brain by 15%. So imagine how much more oxygen is going around the body if you are up, about and running and jumping. And the children enjoy it, and that's the most important thing.
Along with exercise, nutrition has a vital role to play in keeping our children healthy. And at Waldronfield Primary School in Suffolk, they try to instil an early appreciation of good, healthy, non-processed food and where it comes from.
The Kitchen Garden project is so that food can be grown on the school premises and then used in the school kitchens. And Pat Holder, the school cook here, has been absolutely brilliant at making sure that if we do send stuff in, it's served and the children know that it's from the school garden.
The first I see of the vegetables that the children and the salad that the children have grown in the garden is when they arrive with their bucket in front of my counter with such enthusiasm. You cannot help but be enthused by it because they are so proud of what they've grown from seed with Betsy, and they want you to be able to prepare it and present it to them.
Not only does this award-winning school grow its own vegetables, it also has a system of portion control in place that means each child gets to try a little of all the food on the menu, something that's proved popular with children and parents alike.
Certainly, I mean, we have a high uptake of school dinners. In fact, more than 65% of the children have a school dinner. And they enjoy their meals. Patricia's a particularly successful cook in that she treats the children as an extended family. But certainly they take pride in it. They know that they've produced it, they want to sample it, and they taste. And the policy at school is to encourage children to eat a variety of foods and to have a go at, radishes that they perhaps don't particularly like, or beetroot that they thought in the past they didn't, and with a huge amount of success.
The Kitchen Garden project is one of many schemes being introduced into the UK's schools as a way of making children think about what they eat, what activities they do, and how that will affect their long-term health. And it's this kind of joined-up thinking that needs to be put in place if the current generation of school children is not to be the first in recent history to have a life expectancy that's lower than their parents'.